So hey guys, in this session, I'll be quickly going over the electron transport chain, right? Later, I'll be sharing you the PDF of all these images and also few MCQs and a short answer question related to this, right? There can be many kind of questions from the electron transport chain, right? So rather than calling it as electron transport chain, let's call it as a combination of electron transport chain, or you can say the oxidative phosphorylation, right? So pay attention to the keywords I am using in this one so that concepts are much more clearer to you. Since beginning, we know that mitochondria is a powerhouse of a cell that is highlighted in pink over your screen, right? So mitochondria is a powerhouse of a cell. Why? Because it generates lots of energy currency. Currency क्या है हमारे cell का? Energy currency is the ATP, right? सारा mitochondria में ATP produce होता है. So most of the oxidations, maybe it is a fatty acid oxidation, it is happening there in the mitochondria, even the citric acid cycle. So if you follow the yellow highlights, right, or if you follow the red yellow highlights, what do we see here is the fat, not the fat, but the food that we eat, right, that is composed of the fat and the carb and the protein. Fat, which is composed of fatty acid and the glycerol. If we break down the fat in our body, carbohydrate can be broken down into the glucose. Proteins can be broken down into their like smallest entity, that is amino acids, right? They all can synthesize to form an acetyl coenzyme A, right? An acetyl coenzyme A enters where? It enters in the citric acid cycle. In the citric acid cycle, what do we produce? We produce the reducing power, FADH2 NADH. Yes, we do produce GTP also, right? We do produce GTP also, but we also produce NADH, FADH2. NADH we have produced during the beta oxidation, also the glycolysis also. But the whole concept of this oxidative phosphorylation is to convert NADH to FADH2 into what? Into ATPs, right? So these reducing power via the respiratory chain that is happening inside our body converts, synthesizes ATP, in which ADP is converted into ATP, and also oxygen gets converted into the water molecule, right? Oxygen getting converted into water molecule is the oxidation, and ADP converting into ATP is the phosphorylation. So these two processes are coupled together, ठीक है, दोनों को जोड़ देंगे, that's how it is called as oxidative phosphorylation. So initially क्या होगा? Electron transport chain होगा. Electrons will be transferring, right, from NADH FADH2 से. I'm giving you a bigger picture, ठीक है, इनको नहीं पता है अभी तक, right? They will be transferring the electrons from one complex to second to third, one complex to three complex, third complex to four complex, right? Then the 4 to 5 complex, when it reaches, then there will be an oxidative phosphorylation. So electron transport chain with the oxidative phosphorylation makes the ATP, right? So this is what is overall how we are getting the ATP, ठीक है? But setup कैसा होता है इसके अंदर? In the biological oxidation में setup क्या होता है? One thing is NADH, another thing is FADH2. Another thing is FADH2, and FADH2 is released when succinate converts into fumarate. And succinate converts into fumarate, that we have seen in the citric acid cycle also. So I'm not discussing it. NADH donates its electron to complex 1. ठीक है, अभी नाम में नहीं जा रहे हैं. And FADH2 donates its electrons to complex 2. ठीक है, दोनों are going to donate its electrons to complex 2. So these complexes are like big managers. They are in their cabins. They don't move around. They are fixed, right? But since the name is electron transport chain, electrons needed to be transported from one complex to the another complex. So who will do it in the office? We have the peons for that. And those peons are Q, cytochrome C. Q will take electrons from both complex 1 and complex 2, and it will take it to the complex 3. From complex 3, cytochrome C will take the electrons and it will give it to complex 4, where oxidation will happen, and that oxidation will result in the synthesis of the water molecule, right? And then what will be happening? Then the complex 5, which we call it as ATP synthase, will be generating ATP. I'll tell you how it is happening, right? So abhi electron ka transport is clear. There is another diagram I have for you. This one, this is telling you how the overview of electron is happening. Who is involved? Q and C, cytochrome C is involved. Okay? You can make use of this also when they ask you question in the examination hall. Now, so this is happening when during the electron transport, right? Electron transport jab ho raha hota hai, then one more thing is happening, that is the release of the proton. That is the release of the proton in the intermembrane space. Now, before jumping into what are these intermembrane space, just let me refresh your memories regarding the mitochondria structure, right? Mitochondria ke structure mein you have two membranes. One is the outer, which is this red colored, right? And one is inner membrane, that is this purple color. And then you have matrix. Outside is your cytoplasm. So there is in between these two, which is represented via this orange color, right? Peach color, that is an intermembrane space. ठीक है, हम देखेंगे कि in this intermembrane space we will see the protons are being released. वो इस membrane space में accumulate हो जाते हैं. One thing. But for the examination point of view, you should be knowing that there are few processes which are happening in the enzymes of which are present in the inner membrane or in the mitochondrial matrix. Kahan present hai? That is very important question for the exam, right? Enzymes in inner membrane ke upar, attached to inner membrane. What kind of enzymes do we have? The electron carriers, like complexes 1, 2, 3, 4, all they are found in the inner membrane. ATP synthase, which we call it as complex 5, is also there, right? And the membrane transporters are there, right? In the matrix, what is happening? All kind of oxidation is happening. Citric acid cycle, beta oxidation, pyruvate dehydrogenase, which is a link reaction ka enzyme hai, is found in the mitochondrial matrix. Outer membrane also has the enzymes such as acyl coenzyme A synthetase and glycerol phosphate acyl transferase. You should be knowing where, like, which part of mitochondria contains what. Okay? Now, coming back to our electron transport chain. Now, electron is being transported. While the electrons are being transported, there is net release of few protons. Where? In the inner membrane space, highlighted in pink. In the inner membrane space, where protons are being released. And we should be knowing which complex is releasing how many protons in there. They may ask you how many electrons. Only one electron will get transferred at one time. Remember that, right? Only one electron will get transferred. It is not कि आप कह सकते हैं Q will take 5-6 electrons और फिर उसको transport करेगा नहीं. It will take one electron, it will transport it. It will come back, take another and transport it. One electron at a time, right? But about the protons that we should be knowing, ठीक है? NADH ने electrons दिया to the complex 1, right? Which via Q will be transferred to the complex 3. There is no complex 2 बीच में अभी. NADH ने 1 को दिया and it will directly go to 3. It will not go to via 2. And when it will go from 1 to 3, there will be net release of 4 protons in the inner mitochondrial membrane space. So 4 protons, okay? From complex 1 to complex 3. Now from complex 3 to complex 4, again complex 3 will release 4 protons in the inner membranal space. Inner membranal space means space between the outer membrane and the inner membrane. And then complex 4 will release 2 protons. So for NADH, for one NADH molecule, 10 protons are being released in the inner membrane space. right? This is phosphor NADH. Now let's see, take a look for FADH2. ठीक है, FADH2, succinate to fumarate is FADH2. FADH2 give electrons to the complex 3, and complex 3 will take via Q to complex 3. Complex 2 से complex 3 के पास जाएगा. If I said something wrong, just no, sometimes I say something else. ठीक है, so complex 2 से complex 3 it is gonna go, and the 4 protons will be released outside in the inner membranal space. ठीक है, and then from 3 to 4 via cytochrome C electrons जाएंगे, तो 2 protons will be released. So for one FADH2, how many are released? 4 plus 2, only 6 protons are being released. Right? FADH2 के लिए कितना था? 10 protons were released. That is why NADH के लिए कितना था? 10 protons were being released. That is why NADH is equivalent to 2.5 ATP. ज्यादा ATPs देता है. Whereas FADH2 ने कितना release किया? 6 protons. That is why FADH2 is 1.5 ATP. Did you get this difference? You can write this down in the exam also. So this is how the protons are being transported. Right? Complex 4 के पास electrons आ गए हैं. So it is gonna do the oxidation. It is gonna do the oxidation. Its name is cytochrome oxidase. It is gonna do the oxidation, and the oxygen will be converted into water. Oxygen will be converted into water. Okay, that complex 4 will do. Now with time, there are so many protons that are in the inner membranal space. They will come via this F0 cylinder, via F1. You can imagine there is this cylindrical channel which is spanning the membrane. वो उसके अंदर से if they will pass through, they will help in the phosphorylation of ADP molecule. A adenosine diphosphate will take one phosphate, it will be converted into triphosphate. So this part is phosphorylation. This is your phosphorylation, hence the name oxidative phosphorylation. Oxidation was done by complex 4 and phosphorylation is done by complex 5, which is also known as ATP synthase, since it synthesizes the ATP, right? And oxidation and phosphorylation, 5 relation, these complex 4 and complex 5, they are no more they are couples. They are couples, they love each other, they stay together with each other, but there are these intruders, they kill them, right? They kill their bonding, they separate them, they uncouple these processes, oxidation and phosphorylation, right? Hence we also know there are uncouplers. Okay, abhi you know the electrons, you know the protons, you know all the complexes. Now it is the time to remember the common names for the complexes. There are name of the complexes given in the book. You can memorize those also, but I'm giving you very simple, very basic name of the complex, right? Teacher don't expect you to call them as complex 1, complex 2, complex 3, complex 4, complex 5. They want you to know the names for them, and they will ask the question only with the names. Complex 1 is what? Complex 1 accept the electrons from NADH. You can call it as NADH dehydrogenase also. It accepts, second one accepts from the FADH2 or FADH2 or fumarate dehydrogenase or FADH2 dehydrogenase. ठीक है? Complex 5 is ATP synthase, and it is composed of FOF1 particle. It is not 0. It is FOF1 particle. FOF1 particle. This was what doing? Phosphorylation. So above this is, remember this way, it is cytochrome oxidase. This is what? This is cytochrome oxidase. If this is oxidation reduction happens, so third complex name is cytochrome reductase. ऐसे याद कर लो. It will be easier for you. ठीक है? Now you have to know the inhibitors. 1, ONE1, ONE1, ONE1. So inhibitors name end with the 1. Fish poison, rotenone, right? Phenobarbital, right? They inhibit complex 1 1 से याद करो, right? 1 1. Good. Now, most commonly asked question in the exam about inhibitor is cytochrome oxidase, that is complex 4, right? Cytochrome oxidase, if I write the initial, it is CO. CO is cytochrome oxidase, that is complex 4, and CO is also carbon monoxide, which is a poisonous gas, cyanide gas, hydrogen sulfide gas. All these gases, they are inhibitor of complex 4. This is the most commonly asked question in the exam. Good. Now, the last one, look at the last one. FO. O stands for oligomycin. Oligomycin inhibits FO or ATP synthase. Good. Are we doing good? Right? This succinate dehydrogenase, right? One name is succinate dehydrogenase. You can remember via this name also. Succinate dehydrogenase, right? Malonate, right? Mala, your fellow girl or maybe a neighbor girl, sucks, right? She sucks, that is malonate succinate. Mala sucks, malonate succinase inhibits this. Now, how about 3? Usually not so commonly asked, right? But that is antimycin. Antimycin is complex 3 inhibitor. Most commonly asked is complex 4, name of the complex 4, inhibitors of the complex 4. And the next part, what they ask you is uncoupler. Uncoupler uncouples complex 4 and complex 5. Chemical uncouplers most commonly asked is 2,4-DNP, 2,4-dinitrophenol, and also aspirin. Aspirin bhi hai. And now there are few physiological uncouplers. There are few physiological uncouplers. वो कौन कौन से हैं? Thermogenin. Thermogenin is found in the brown fat. Newborn babies में होते हैं, bears में, भालुओं में भी होते हैं, right? And who else are there? Thyroxine hormone is physiological uncoupler, right? Your free fatty acids are also physiological uncoupler. Bilirubin is also physiological uncouplers, right? So now you can write a short note on the uncouplers also, inhibitors also, and this is how you're gonna remember it. Now, ATP synthase, right? Complex 5. Kaisa, how does it look like? It looks like this in your books, but I prefer it to look at upside down. Upside down se hi sense banega uska. Otherwise, it does not make sense. At least to me, it does not make sense. I'm telling you my fact. ठीक है, ये उल्टा ही होता actually. उल्टा ही होता means this is the inner mitochondrial membrane and this is matrix. तभी तो sense बनेगा ना. And this is what? This part is your F0 part and this FO and this is F1 particle. ठीक है, ये क्या होता है? This is like a mini turbine. Turbine में देखा पानी की वजह से the turbine rotates and it generates the electricity. That what turbine is. ठीक है, इसलिए इतने बड़े-बड़े dams भी बनाए गए हैं. Same concept is here. So you had lots of protons here in the inner mitochondrial membrane, like membranal space में inner outer or inner membranal space के अंदर mitochondrial membranal space has lots of protons. Those protons will come via these. ठीक है, via this circular kind of a thing, via this cylinder with the gamma unit. It has alpha, beta, gamma, 8 kind of subunits. It has the F1 particle. When it filters or comes via this starts rotating. ठीक है, it starts rotating and this entire piece will change its conformation from tensed to relaxed state. That will help in the synthesis of ATP or phosphorylation of adenosine diphosphate to adenosine triphosphate, right? The beta subunit, if you want to go in detail, the beta subunit does the catalytic activity. alpha subunit helps to bring out the conformational change, right? And with the help of the gamma subunit, it is rotating. The turbine is rotating. This is the world's smallest turbine. This is the world's smallest turbine. So this is your ATP synthase, right? Now, you may write in exam also, inner mitochondrial membrane. First of all, your knowledge, you should be knowing, it is very selectively permeable. The inner one, right? Outer one is more permeable. Selective तो है ही है, but it is more permeable, थोड़ा loosen है, ठीक है, आने देता है. But inner mitochondrial membrane is very selectively permeable. So usually it does not allow protons to come pass via these. ठीक है, protons को इसके via, मतलब कि सभी चीजों को bypass करके protons via the membrane, they usually don't come. When do they come? When during the uncoupling they come, or maybe the membrane becomes leaky, then they come. Then proton यहाँ से नहीं आते हैं, proton membrane से आते हैं. That results in decreased synthesis of the ATP. ठीक है, अनकपलर क्या करता है, मेम्ब्रेन की परमिएबिलिटी को, it is increasing the membrane permeability. Protons as such आ जाते हैं, but still since there was lots of proton, right, positive charge membrane के space में is there's too much of the protons and outside negative charge इकट्ठा हो जाता है. So एक kind of an electrochemical gradient setup हो जाता है, ठीक है, energy हो जाता है वहां पे. When the uncouplers allows the protons to come as such without passing through the ATP synthase, then वो energy कैसे lose होगी? That energy is lost in the system in the form of a heat. So person will feel the feverish temperature, body temperature with the uncouplers becomes higher. You can write that point also in your exam, right? Now I'll change this to the original. Okay, perfect. Right, so these are the figures from the Harper book. I'm going to share it with you, and they have, each figure has some kind of explanation. You may write it. They may ask you a short note, mechanism of ATP production by ATP synthase, right? And in this, they can ask you about the chemiosmotic theory of oxidative phosphorylation. What is chemiosmotic theory? When you have the protons outside, electrons are passing through, and the protons से क्या हो गया, एक proton is there, this becomes positively charged. So inside and like towards the cytoplasm also, and towards the other side of the mitochondrial membrane, the matrix, there is an accumulation of a negative charge. This is chemiosmotic theory, and because of this chemiosmotic force, the ATP synthesis takes place. Okay. Let me see if I have something else. I guess this is pretty much it about the electron transport chain, right? With this, I will end this session, and I would like to thank you very much, right? I'll be sharing few questions with you. Just go through the questions. If you don't understand it, you can ping me always, okay? Thank you.